Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our book club. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, joining us today is Amanda Murray, aquarist at the Belle Isle Aquarium in Detroit. Amanda, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so I'm the senior aquarist here at the Belle Isle Aquarium in Detroit. We are the oldest aquarium in the United States. We opened in 1904. So super cool historic building. And we have all kinds of animals, including octopus.
Oh,
So that is why we don't currently have an octopus now, because we're going through construction and we're holding off because they're super sensitive. I guess we could talk about that, but we're holding off until construction starts to see if we want to get one. But we've had a few in the past, so I'm here
that's
to
great.
answer questions.
Good, good. Oh, yeah, I looked at the website of the aquarium and it didn't say anything about an octopus. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they don't have an octopus. But our zoo is between octopuses right now, too. So I understand they only live a couple of years and it takes a while to find a new one.
Yeah, yeah, and it's sad too for us keepers because we kind of want a little waiting period between because it's like when you lose a dog, I mean more than any other animals, right? So it's nice to have like a little breather.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's great. Okay, so today we're discussing Soul of an Octopus by Cy Montgomery. She's also written another book, Secrets of the Octopus, which went together with a video series on National Geographic. But I read this book a few years ago and I was just amazed at the personalities an octopus has. You always think of warm-blooded, fuzzy animals as having personalities and being friendly or not friendly, but you don't think of that as with a cold-blooded creature like an octopus. And I just, goodness, we got more people coming in. Okay. Um, do you find that with other creatures in the aquarium too, that they have different personalities, different characters?
Yeah, in fact, I could even say like we have two largemouth bass and completely different personalities. Like I have one that's in a community tank with other fish and he gets along fine. And then I have another one, she's very fussy eater. She doesn't like other fish. So she's by herself. So, I mean, you find it with all kinds of fish.
That's great. Anybody have any questions for Amanda or anything you want to talk about with the book? Yep, Georgiana, you're muted.
Well, I read the book a few years ago and also was intrigued by the personalities and how um, intelligent they were. The fun stories about how the one was sneaking out of the tank and down the hall to get fish. And have you had any interesting, fun experiences with the octopus you have worked with, or?
Yeah, so our octopus is on a lockdown. Our tank is surrounded by that fake grass they use, like putt grass, I guess. So surrounded by that because I can't get purchase on it. And then on top of that, we have locking lids. But I do have a funny story. So we got our first octopus a few years ago. His name was Sprinkles. And, we came in the next day after putting him in the tank, and he wasn't in the tank. And we're like, wait a second, there's no way he got out. There's no way. And come to find out that the people that put in the background of the tank, there was a little crack. And so he was still in the tank technically, but he was behind the background. And he got through it because they must have fixed it. So we finally found him in the back, but we couldn't take him out right away. We had to make friends. We didn't want to stress him. So he would come up and eat, and he'd reach out because we had a little hole in the back. We could interact with him. And he finally, one day, he climbed right out into a bucket for us. And we got him out. We emptied the tank. We repaired the crack, and then we put him back in. And it went really smooth, but it was just he found that one tiny little crack in that tank. And but he still came to us, and he still wanted to interact with us. And so we kind of bonded through that experience.
Oh, that's cool. Anybody else have any questions?
There's some in chat, I think.
Oh, okay. I don't have chat open. Let me get it. Oh, yeah. Are there any favorite foods your octopus preferred?
So our first octopus, Sprinkles, and we named him Sprinkles because we bonded over a watering can. So he really liked to be sprinkled with the watering can out of the water. I mean, it was his favorite thing. He could do it for hours. That's why his name is Sprinkles. But he really liked shrimp. Shrimp was his favorite. Wasn't a huge fan of tilapia as much, but he liked the shrimp and prawns a little bit. Our second octopus, his name was Dr. Otto Octavius, and he liked everything. He was much more outgoing. I guess if the differences in personality between the two, one was an introvert. Sprinkles was definitely introverted, and Otto was definitely extroverted. They were completely different in that regard, and he ate everything. Otto was not picky. He would try anything and everything, even our gel substance, which I didn't expect him to eat. He at least tried it. I mean, he spit it out, but he tried it. So he was a little more adventurous than Sprinkles was.
I also recalled something from the different books about how they can shrink. We sort of described they get into tinier spaces, or they can squeeze. How much do their body is just totally flexible?
Yeah. So basically, the only hard part of their body is their beak. And so if their beak fits through, they can get through. And so that's mostly why you have to make sure everything is really tight. And it's funny how we had that one crack that just got missed by the people. We had a professional company come in and put it together. But we sealed it, and our other octopus didn't escape. So we're good with that. But yeah, it's funny how they can really squeeze into places.
I've heard about them getting out of the water and like crawling across the floor. How long can they stay out of water and survive?
I don't know the exact amount, but I'm sure they're really sensitive to changes in their own tanks of water and temperature. So I'm sure if they got out for a long period of time, it's going to stress them. When Sprinkles climbed out of the little hole he was in behind the tank and into our little bucket, when he climbs out, they're completely flat on land. They don't hold a shape. It's not like in Finding Dory where he's his shape. They're like flat. So almost like jelly coming through when he climbed out. But they can move. I mean, if they get purchased, they can grip and move.
Another question from Lori. How often do they mate?
They only mate once. Well, at least the males. So the males have a spermatophore that they give to the female. They have a little, one of their arms has missing suction cups, and they would grab their spermatophore and put it in the siphon of the female. and then that's it. They go through what we call senescence. So once they release that, they start to slowly, they stop eating. And then the female, she will fertilize her eggs. And then when she lays the eggs, she'll sit with the eggs and go through senescence, because she'll stop eating, but she'll sit with the eggs until they hatch. We have not had a female, so we have not seen the eggs, which would have been cool. Both of ours have been male.
Which species of octopus have the longest lifespan?
The giant Pacific octopus have the longer lifespan. Those are the ones that we have. Their lifespans range from 2 years to 5 years. Usually the longer lived ones are the ones that live in the deeper, colder waters. So most of ours are from more shallow. So we usually only have ours not very long by the time we get them. Our last one, we only had probably less than a year. Sprinkles we had for probably 1.5 to 2 years. So we had him for a little longer. But senescence, you just don't know when it's going to kick in. It just depends on the age of the animal when you get them.
I've noticed in Cy Montgomery's books that she talks about a lot of information that is new about octopuses. She, in the beginning, she talks about the historical discussion of octopuses as some kind of horrible monster. But are you learning, are scientists and aquarists learning more and more about octopuses all the time?
Yeah, I know I read a study recently that they found out that they dream, that octopuses dream based on their color shifting and stuff. I don't know a lot about the study, but I'm sure if you look it up, you can find that information. I know that there was a study done in an aquarium about facial recognition. So what they did was they dressed all the aquarists up in the same outfit and just had different faces. And they had some aquarists that were like giving them food and treats and having fun. And then they had another aquarist come in and kind of pester them. I mean, not in a mean way, but like, kind of poke at them, not feed them, kind of tease them a little bit. And the octopuses learned which ones were the ones they liked and which ones they didn't based on just the face. And sometimes they would squirt and spray the ones they don't like. And they can aim that siphon. Let me tell you, they aim that siphon really well.
Another question, is there any real cognitive study being done on octopuses? And if so, is there a difference in species?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I know they, like I said, they do like the dream studies. We haven't done any specific studies here with our octopus. I know that species-wise, some don't live as long, but cognitively, I don't know if there's a huge difference between them. But yeah, I just worked with the specific ones.
Oh, Sue Goldberg put a link to the sleep study
Oh, yeah.
information. And Hannah Salvatore says, I have some input on the eggs.
Am I unmuted?
You're
Can you hear?
unmuted. You're good.
Okay, I'm with Baltimore Aquarium, and I've been there 22 years. So I've seen the eggs 5, 6 times. And when you come in, of course, that's it for the octopus. She's not going to live much longer. But it's almost like a curtain. Like you'll have you can see the tiny little eggs. And they like hang in groups, hang like almost like a little curtain around the exhibit. And it's really interesting to see, but depressing, because we know that's it.
Yeah.
Pretty soon. And we've never had one live very long after it laid eggs. I know in the book she had one that lived quite a while, which was unusual. We've never had one live long, and they'll often take her off exhibit, as she starts to fade. I think it would be educational if it's not more stressful on her to leave her in, but we don't do that. Now, we've had males too. And at the moment, we don't have one because the last one we had was very shy, and we actually took him off exhibit. And apparently, they're pretty hard to get right now, even though people eat them,
Oh, that's fascinating. I know we had our first octopus was a female, and she, I remember when they were talking about how she had gone into senescence, but I don't remember seeing the eggs. But she was always in like a little cave, and assuming if the eggs were behind her, we wouldn't have seen them.
Yeah, we often have them on the window.
Oh, Lori asks, in general, how long do the eggs take to hatch?
Well, they won't because they're not fertilized
Oh,
in captivity. I don't know that anybody's bred octopuses in captivity. Maybe I read, maybe Cy said there was one place that did, but you know, it's kind of like putting big cats together. It's pretty iffy because if they're not exactly ready,
mm.
they could kill each other.
Cassie asks if any of the aquariums have eggs hatch, maybe from a recently acquired octopus that was already fertilized.
Ah,
I mean, I haven't seen any eggs hatch from an octopus, but I think the Alaska Sea Life Center works with giant Pacific octopus, and I don't know if they've had success either breeding or getting very young octopus. But yeah, breeding is really not done in aquariums. Most aquariums, octopus that they get are from the wild. So they're more like ambassador animals. So yeah, most of them aren't from a breeding program. But the Alaska Sea Life Center, I know, does a lot of work with them. So they might either not necessarily breed them or like close to it, something to look into.
The in I picked up the book this morning and I hadn't read it in so long, but one of the things it mentions on the back is she tells a love story. Um, uh, what octopuses can teach us about meeting of two very different minds. And it's like I said at the beginning, I never thought of cold-blooded creatures like octopuses having feelings and emotions, and it seems like they do have emotions. And you said, Amanda, you said you've noticed that in other uh, animals at the aquarium that they have different preferences and different likes and dislikes. Uh, I think we've got to be a little more open-minded, I guess.
Yeah, so definitely. I mean, furry is very well loved, but I think the rest of the animals like sometimes get ignored. My background is actually in entomology, so I really love bugs. They're my favorite. So I understand when the animals don't get as much love, but like even crayfish, like we have just like in Michigan, we have some wild caught crayfish, and I have two in a tank, and one of them really extroverted, likes to build a lot of things in the tank, and the other one just likes to sit in his little cave. So I mean, even simple animals have different preferences for what they like, which is kind of fun to see. And you really get to see that working in an aquarium. We have such a varied amount of animals.
Okay, question, are there species that are now allowed to be wild caught? Any, are there any that are not allowed in aquariums? I think you said the octopuses are generally wild caught.
I don't know about which species aren't or are not. I mean, I know like as far as more than octopus, there are some animals like if you ever see a dory fish, like the blue tangs, like dory, they are not bred in captivity, or if they just started, they're very difficult. And so almost every dory fish that you see is a caught animal, but the key is it sustainably caught? Because a lot of times on reefs and stuff, they use cyanide to catch the animals to kind of make them slower, and that is not a sustainable way of catching animals. So the goals of zoos and aquariums for their animals is to make sure that if they do have an animal that is wild caught, that is sustainably caught and is not to the detriment of the animal or its environment.
This is Hannah again. I have two things to say. I recommend What a Fish Knows. You know, the discussion about emotions, reading What a Fish Knows. They know a lot, apparently. And oh darn, I just forgot the other thing I was going to say. It'll come back probably.
I added that to my list of things to read.
Yeah.
It's Jonathan Belcombe.
Are octopus endangered? Are some of the species endangered, or how are they being affected by the warming temperatures in the ocean? Do you know?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm sure that they are being affected. I know we source ours from Vancouver, Canada. The guy that gets them, he goes out only seasonally. He doesn't do it all the time. It's not something he's always pulling, so they don't always have them. And he goes out and dives for them. Like, he doesn't cast nets or traps. Like, he goes out and catches them one by one. And I think, as far as I'm concerned, that the last few times we had a harder time getting them. I don't know if it's related to the environment, but I could assume that it would affect it. And maybe tropical octopuses that you may see on like the reefs and stuff may be affected too. Like the blue-ringed octopus in Australia, which is super highly dangerous and venomous. Maybe more affected by some of like the coral bleachings and the habitat that's also going away.
I thought of the other thing I was going to say. Recently, and I think it's part of AZA, recently a lot of the aquariums have signed on to be experts on breeding particular fish and doing exchanging of fish that they've successfully bred rather than getting them from the wild. Now, that's relatively new. And about the blue-ringed octopus, I've been to Australia a couple of times thinking I might see one in an aquarium. And they told me no, they will not ever have them in aquariums because they are so venomous. Now, that may not even be true, but the people I asked, that's what they told me.
I imagine they would be hard to handle for the
Yeah.
food.
Yeah, as I understand it, you get hit by a blue ring and just, you're gone.
Wow.
I asked the same question when I was in Australia, and I got the same answer.
Yeah, I was bummed. I wanted to see one behind glass.
Yes. Yeah. I downloaded a discussion reading group guide for the book, and one of the questions, many cultures consume octopuses as food. Do you see any issues regarding eating octopuses? That was an interesting question.
I mean, how do I feel about eating octopus? I'm not a huge fan. Like, I do eat like fish, and people ask me about like perch, like lake perch. Like, you have lake perch, but you eat perch. I'm like, well, if you cut me up and threw me in there, they'd eat me too. But no. That being said, I would never eat my animals, especially an animal I meet. And also an octopus, I don't know. I feel like we're finding so much more about them and their intelligence, and they're so short-lived that I feel like there are other things we
Yeah.
can do. And, you know, I'm coming from someone who's a Detroit Red Wings fan. I don't know if you know our tradition of throwing the octopus on the ice when we do well. Of course, I always tell people they're not live octopus. They're the octopus that people eat. They buy them from the butcher shops to throw them. Do I agree with that? I mean, no. I mean, as a fan, I was always kind of like, I don't know how I feel, but also it rives up the fan base. But I feel like as now I took care of an octopus, I kind of want to like educate the team, be like, can we throw rubber octopus out there instead? Because I mean, we can still have that, you know, team yay, yay, rah, rah without throwing an animal out there carcass, you know? So I do feel differently about that, having taken care of an octopus.
This
It's
is a
not that different than we eat pigs, even though we know they're smart, even though we know they have family groups and all sorts of behaviors that we associate and personify.
We don't
But we
all
still,
eat pigs, though.
that's very true. And the more you know, the less you do.
My input on the octopus is when people say, oh, they're delicious. Well, many years ago in Hawaii, a young boy killed an octopus and cooked it for a group I was with. And I did taste it. I would never do it today, but I did it that time. And my comment about how delicious they are is, well, if you put sauce on rubber bands, it's about the same thing.
a good question. Do you notice that such books as Soul of an Octopus help people's general awareness of the critters in your aquarium?
Yeah, we get a lot. Actually, what we got a lot of is that documentary on Netflix. The octopus one, I forget what it's called. That one, people bring up a lot. Like, oh, I watched that documentary, and but it's you know, it's good. It brings awareness to the animals that we have, and that they're more than just, you know, something to eat, or, you know, just an animal, that they're very, very smart. So yeah, we have had people, and I've had people ask, like, how do you feel about them in captivity? Personally, I don't know. Like, I love my octopus and I love caring for them. Do I feel that they're important in captivity? I do feel that they are an important ambassador animal for people to connect with this animal. I mean, like, for example, Sprinkles is a good ambassador. Like, taking one from the wild in a situation, he's cared for very well. We loved him. But you know, I do feel bad for doing that, but at the same time, we introduced him to so many people that would never have even thought of this animal and seen it. So I have two thoughts about it. I do think they're good ambassadors. I don't know. As personally, I think keeping them in the aquarium, like, if they're well taken care for, it's fine. But I don't know. I feel like there could be an argument made that maybe we do a keep an aquarium and then release so they can mate in the wild kind of thing, more so than keeping them their whole lives in the aquarium. Something to think about.
Our zoo has a slogan, bringing you close enough to care. And I
I
think
love that.
that's an important part of zoos too. And aquariums.
Do any of your zoos or aquariums have a good book section, either in the gift shop or a little free library, or something that would really maybe introduce the public to some of these titles that they might otherwise not notice because Amazon curates what they see?
We do have a public library, like out front, one of those like give and take libraries. That's a good idea to put those books in there. I don't know what is in there. And then we have in our classroom, we have a bunch of children's books we do like readings and stuff. So, but more for children, not as much for adults. We sell books in our store. But most of them are children's books because they sell better than other books. But that's a really good point, and I'll definitely bring it up to our store about selling books like, you know, The Soul of an Octopus or Bright Creatures, Remarkably Bright Creatures.
Yeah.
I think that it would be kind of cool to promote that kind of thing.
Yeah. And that way your aquarium would would make some money off of them, and not just have Amazon make all the money off the books.
But just the awareness would be good, but also even just a book list being published by the aquarium or the zoo for reputable books that would be recommended.
Mhm.
I don't see that happening in most, even the little free libraries, the give and take libraries, as you said. I they seem to go in segments where this little free library might be very, very keen on romance novels, this one on mystery novels, this one, because they attract the same type of people that come back and trade books over and over again. So if the aquarium or zoo stocked it, maybe it could attract more people in that way and bring other people into that fold.
Mhm. Yeah, here's a comment. The book list idea would be easy to post on a zoo or aquarium's website. It's a great idea. One of the things that came up in the reader's discussion of the book is the problem of anthropomorphizing. And it seems to be a difference between, thinking of furry little creatures happy to see me, and just understanding what the animal is thinking and relating it to how we think. Oh, it's interesting idea.
So as far as like aquarium, we've had a lot of discussions about anthropomorphizing because on our education side, they were sort of against even naming the animals or letting the public know about the animal names because they're like, well, they're not pets. But here's the thing. Most zoos and aquariums, almost everyone that I know of, sometimes even post and share the names of the animals. A lot of times it is because we do log all our animals, like especially the big ones, into like an octopus, and I have to have a name for them in my logs, and I don't want like octopus 1.232. I'd rather have sprinkles. That's easier to remember. Um, but also, like when you give something a name, you make a connection to someone, and we can still name something with still saying that this is not a pet, right? This is not my pet. This is an animal in my care, and he has a name. His name is Sprinkles, right? But people, when you name something, it's like it brings them to another level closer. Even when I have cockroaches, I have hissing cockroaches that I'll bring out, let the public hold. A lot of times I'll bring the cockroach out and I say it's a cockroach, and they're like, ew, 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 gross. But then I say, oh, this is my cockroach. Her name is Daisy. And immediately, especially with little girls, I'll be like, oh, it's Daisy. And there's like a lean into it, and they're more curious about learning about the animal. So there is a fine line because we don't want to make people think that we are caring for pets in a zoo or aquarium, but we also want to make that connection with the public. And I think a little bit is okay.
I know some of the animals that I care for, uh, rows and rows of amphibians, and they don't have names because they're behind scenes only. But they end up with names because G3Q ends up being its name. And then when you refer to it, you're still saying G3Q, and everybody who works in that lab knows who that animal is.
Mhm.
So, what's in a name?
Right.
It still becomes a name, whether or not you intend it to.
Mhm.
It's just how people think. I love the idea of bringing people more in with attractive names, though. I know we have sections of our local zoo that does exactly that, like the petting zoo and different species that are very much on display. And then there are other sections, particularly the herpetology group, that doesn't do it. And maybe we need to. Maybe we need to get people to draw in and understand more about it.
Cassie, what zoo are you involved in?
I've got two ACA facilities that I volunteer in. I'm
Oh.
at Zoo Atlanta, and then I also volunteer every week at the Amphibian Foundation, which is a non-public amphibian and reptile conservation lab.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed with our ASAD members, we have a lot of knowledge. And one of our goals this year with the professional development is to try and get more knowledge, more information, and spread it.
There are docents at the zoo that at Atlanta Zoo that when I see them, I just get book lists from them because they are so knowledgeable. And between the blogs, the keeper blogs, other zoo blogs, the books that they're reading, it's really it's a well-rounded education just to talk to these people. It's
Yep.
amazing.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought was really interesting about the book was Cy Montgomery's a very keen observer of people as well as the animals.
Hmm.
And I really liked the fact that she was commenting on teenage girls about halfway through that when she told them animal facts about the octopus, when she was doing her interp, they leaned away when she said what makes the octopus different, but they came back in whenever she said something that made them the same. They could picture themselves in the they could picture themselves in the mode of being a mother, for example, and having eggs or a baby to take care of. But as soon as they talked about something that was different, the teenage girls would kind of get distracted, look away, look around the room, look at what's next. And it was not the same thing that she commented happened at other age groups. But for the teenagers who are so important to fit in, it kind of makes sense to me that they would react that way. But it's a very good observation that I'm going to have to check out at the zoo now. Usually I work more with adults or small children, but now I'm going to make sure that I'm talking to a few teenagers just to see if they do that. Do experiments on teenagers. It's always a
Right.
good thing. It's a very good thing, right?
I know I was on a tour. This was a few years ago at our zoo. We were going around a tour with, I think there were high school or college students. And at that time, we had a bald eagle, which we don't anymore. And we were talking about the eagle. And then all of a sudden, one of the boys is looking on his phone, and he goes, their nest can weigh 2,000 pounds. And everybody went, whoa. It's like, I think maybe it's just a sexist thing to say, but it seems like boys are more into like information and weird stuff.
I don't know. We get a lot of girls that are as well.
Yeah.
But it's always the younger kids, like the third, fourth graders. It's the same time that they seem to check out of school at times and kind of like, I can't read, I don't like reading, or whatever it is. They're the same ones that if they hit you with facts, you better be on your game because they know way more than I will ever know. It depends on the kid, depends on the species they're looking at.
I do notice it with girls. I think a lot of times it's not necessarily a girl boy, but more of like how girls are taught in our roles. So, for example, when I worked at a science center, I had my roaches, and a lot of times when I show a young girl, young still, like maybe it's 5, 6, 7, a roach, sometimes she looks at mom first and sees mom's reaction. And if mom is like, ew, no, don't touch that. That's dirty. We don't touch that, then the girl will look at it and say, oh, and you know, don't touch that, even though initially she might have been curious. And I find that my mother didn't like bugs, hates spiders. I love spiders growing up. But my mom never did that. Like, you know, she might have been grossed out by the bug I was, you know, wanted to hold, but she didn't, you know, she let me hold it. She didn't tell me, you gross, don't do that. she encouraged my curiosity, even though she didn't like bugs. So I think it's really important, especially for young girls, to see, that if they're curious about bugs, it's okay to be grossed out about bugs. But if you're curious about bugs, to encourage that instead of trying to, their role models are going to look to.
I always feel like once you hit middle age, you get this whole power at the zoo in some ways, because all these parents that bring in young kids, sometimes grandparents that bring in young kids, I'm generally handling a reptile on grounds if I take an animal out. And some of these parents who have been taught to be so fearful or to be a bit disgusted about these animals will see you and think, oh, that's a mom age. That person's safe for my kid to go up and talk to. And then they'll let these kids come up, and the little girls in particular are imitating their mom and say, oh, it's so disgusting. How cold, how slimy. But then when they come up and they see another person doing this, particularly a woman that's, same age as mom, it gives a different possibility. It gives maybe a different perspective. And it seems to be very impactful to be able to have kids come up, even though mom is obviously not into it, or dad. Sometimes it's dad too, but more often it's the mom. Um, and sometimes the kids even want to come over and show off that they can really be enjoying an interaction with a reptile or an amphibian, or something that maybe their parents wouldn't go for. Again, experimenting on kids, clearly.
Yes.
Oh, maybe I should look at this.
Well, at our zoo, quite a few years ago, we had briefly, because they're also short-lived, we had an opossum. Uh, the mother was killed in the parking lot, hit by a car in the parking lot, and they found the baby inside the mother. So, in the pouch. So the zoo took the baby in and raised her. She was hand reared. And so the keeper would walk around with her on his shoulders, and people would come up. And you see opossums, especially their tails, everybody goes, ew, because they think they're freaky, they're nasty, dirty animals. But you come up and pet one, and they're so cute. And I think you see the same thing with cold-blooded creatures too. All right, we're coming up on about, 45 minutes in. Does anybody else have anything they want to discuss? Anything in the book that really interested you or moved you?
I know I talk about with kids and other people about how super smart the octopus is, and how you in the books, I mean, she talks about them recognizing people. And I think that's something that people can identify with, and kids find that really, or in adults find that very interesting, that this interesting uh, being can have, like you said earlier, like the mother protecting the babies kind of thing.
Mhm.
But the fact um, that they're so intelligent, that, but that they can recognize you if you're somebody who's with them a lot, and they can either like you or not like you.
Or be playful and not playful, depending on the person.
Mhm.
Yeah, that they they interact, and people wouldn't think that sea creatures particularly would do that.
Right. You think of them as kind of maybe blobs or art pieces or something that doesn't have emotions or
Yeah.
feeling.
Amanda, before we lose you, how long is the gestation period for most octopuses?
So I'm not exactly sure what their gestation is. We just had the males. I should have brought the spermatophores up because I did save when they released their spermatophores when they went senescence. But I'm not sure what their gestation is offhand.
Is it considered gestation or incubation, or what's the right term for that?
I'm not exactly sure. I would think it would incubation sounds right, but I'm not exactly sure.
So the odds of capturing a fertilized egg carrying female is pretty next to nil, I'm gonna guess.
Yeah, most aquariums when they get their octopuses, they want them young, because if you're going to get one, you don't want to get one that's going to be gone in a few months. So most of them are very small and unlikely to be fertilized.
That makes sense.
Ours are shipped in a cooler. He just came in just like a regular old Coleman cooler that they ship them in, and from Vancouver. So it's always a little stressful to get them because they just been through a lot, and so we try to make their transitions as comfortable as they can. Although I'd say like they do like a lot of toys. So some of the toys, this might be kind of fun. Some of the toys that we've used a lot of Kongs, like dog toys. Um, the jar thing, Sprinkles did not like solving puzzles. Sprinkles was kind of lazy, but Dr. Otto, he was smarter. He seemed like he was thinking. Like when he looked at you, he looked like he was working something out. So he liked the puzzles more. He really liked Mr. Potato Head. We gave him Mr. Potato Head, and he would tear the whole thing apart. We'd have pieces everywhere, and we'd put food in the inside of it. So we put food in the inside, and then he'd have to like rip it apart and open the back and stuff. So he really liked that one. And he also really liked, like we had plastic boats, and we used to put food in the boats and float them on the surface. And he used to like to get those, but he used to like see it, and then he like Kraken out of a horror movie would like sneak up and then grab it and pull it down. So he really liked doing that. Much more playful than our first one, like touches. He was very gentle. He liked the sprinkles. He liked the interaction, where our second one liked to play with toys. He was much rougher than the first one.
For an octopus that plays with toys, uh, if you have a toy and then they don't have the toy for a long period, like a year or so, do they show immediate recognition of that toy, or do they have to gradually figure it out again?
So I think we usually wait. If we did anything, it was only for a few months. I think for the jars, Sprinkles really never got it, but we didn't always do the jars with Otto. But even if we didn't do them for a while, he usually figured them out again pretty quickly, because he was pretty smart. I'm not saying Sprinkles wasn't smart, but Sprinkles, he seemed just more like introverted and like relaxed. And he also often hid in the back more, whereas Otto would be up front all the time. Like I think he loved people. He loved watching. Even when he was resting and sleeping, he was in the front on the glass watching people. So it's just amazing how both of them were completely different personalities.
I just wanted to say that I have read a couple of other books of Cy Montgomery. She's quite a good writer to bring science to the masses, you might say. And her book about the hawk was really very touching. I think she makes all of her books emotionally grabbing for the reader.
I second that.
Yeah.
I have one of her books that's short stories, and it's good as well. It doesn't go as in depth, and if I remember right, it has a lot more plants and naturalist, non-animal related topics as well. But it's also very good.
Anybody who could write a book about what a chicken thinks has got to be an interesting person.
My grandfather might take you to task for that. He was an egg farmer and he loved his chickens. He brought blankets out to them in the winter. Yeah, they were very special.
We've cooked corn and oatmeal for ours over the colder days. Kind of ridiculous, but they love it. And some of them really have certain personalities and attached to certain people.
Does anybody else have any
Oh.
questions or discussion or anything?
I was going to say another great book she wrote was How to Be a Good Creature,
Oh, that sounds interesting.
because she talks about different animals that she felt changed her life, the different ones. So I was trying to see.
It almost sounds like a kid's book.
But it's the personality and quirks of 13 animals. Um, it's from tarantulas to tigers, as she put it.
Wow.
But it really, it's almost like little short stories, but it's the how their different personalities and stuff, like all her books, that how you identify with the animals, like the chicken or the pig, or um, so it just gives you 13 of the animals. But all her books are just great.
Sounds like a great book to put in our zoo's bookshops.
But it's like how to be a good creature. Like, how can we be better?
Well, I haven't made all the arrangements yet, but next month we are going to be meeting with I'm forgetting the name of the zoo they're at. They keepers who went on a trip to Nepal to work with red pandas. And they've got a presentation that they're going to do for us sometime next month, but I'll announce that well in advance.
Yay. Thank you.
Yay.
I can't wait to tell my grandson I'm visiting in California and red pandas are his favorite. And I gave all the grandchildren checks, blank checks for their holiday gift and asked them to choose a charity and let me know what charity they are going to give the money to. And there was no hesitation. The red panda people got money from here anyway. So I sent him a picture from the Facebook page of
Oh,
those keepers who
oh,
went,
yes.
and he thinks that's really cool. So I'm
Yep.
gonna tell him this morning.
Oh, yeah. It'll be
Thanks for doing
recorded.
that.
So it'll be recorded so you can show it to him too. My granddaughter loves red pandas. When I take her to the zoo, she has her little stuffed red pandas. She puts them in her backpack and brings them so they can say hello to their relatives.
Yeah, his stuffy came from the San Francisco Zoo. He turned 14 2 days ago.
Wow.
You would not believe what that stuffy looks like now.
Well worn and well loved, like the
Oh, you bet.
Velveteen Rabbit.
Where do we find the recording?
They're on our YouTube channel, and I usually put a link in, or I always put a link in Facebook to it. But if you just go to YouTube and you search for AZAD volunteers or docents, if you put AZAD, apparently that's a word in Arabic, and it shows up all these different Arabic sites. So ASAD doesn't work, but if you put volunteers or docents with it, it'll pop up.
Thank you.
We're in the process of redoing our webpage. And one of the things they're going to do is have a direct link on our website to the YouTube videos to make them easier to find. All right. Does anybody else have anything before we close? Amanda, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I love it. I love talking about animals, and I learned a lot from you guys, and what a cool thing that you do. It's super cool.
Is Belle Isle Aquarium part of the ACA?
Not yet. We are looking to be accredited, but we can't run. We're getting HVAC put in this year, and so we have a lot of construction projects. Most of our barriers to AZA are because our building's old, so we're working on that.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we're actually, the last few years, I've been going through our animal care and lining them up with AZA standards. So it is something that we're not official yet, but we're hoping after our HVAC is put in that we can, we have a mentor, and hopefully we can, get in there. I'm very excited.
It was such an old building that has to really be a challenge.
Yeah, this next year is going to be a lot with construction, and moving fish isn't like moving other animals because you have water. So there's going to be a lot of challenges, but in the long run, it's going to be better for the animals and for us too to have air conditioning, but mostly the animals. So I'm looking forward to that.
Now, do you have volunteers at your aquarium, or just?
Yeah, we have volunteers that help out front. I have volunteers that help me in the back. We have a group of retirees that are our maintenance guys that come in and do fixes and building stuff for us. So yeah, we do have a really good core group of volunteers.
Oh, that's great. Great. All right. If nobody else has anything to say, I want to thank Amanda so much for joining us and thank the rest of the group. We've had 13 people here so far. I want to thank everybody for joining, and keep an eye out on the Facebook page and the email. I'll let you know when we're going to talk about red pandas. Back to
Thank
the
you.
filters.
Thank you so much for hosting this and putting it together. And thank you, Amanda, for all of the very, very amazing insights.
All right. Bye-bye. I'm closing us up now.